Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope all of you are having a great day or evening wherever you may be, however you may be listening and watching this podcast. Thank you. How's everybody doing? I'm doing great. I am blessed. I am grateful for all that I have, and I have no reason to complain whatsoever. And I was doing some thinking as I was on the T heading home, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do another podcast, another solo episode, no guest. It's just me, Shukri Writes. If you enjoy my podcast, enjoy, the content that I create, subscribe, rate on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast at. I sincerely appreciate you always. And you, the listener, the viewer, those who take the time to actually show me support. I really appreciate all of you. So thank you. And I just figured that this week I would do another solo podcast because last week I did one, and like I didn't expect it to be the success that it turned out to be, and I'm grateful, and I'm grateful for the feedback from the people who listened and everything. And this time around, I thought, why not do another one? Why not get into a practice of doing solo podcasts, solo episodes? Get reps, continue to get comfortable on camera, get comfortable behind the mic, all of that. Because this is what it's ultimately about. And I want people who have been following my journey as a sports radio host and now broadcaster doing BU games, Boston University athletics, and Brown University athletics on ESPN plus ESPN, Learfield Audio, to see that, I'm putting in the work, the extra work, to get comfortable, to overcome those flaws that I have. And I know that I'm a guy that stutters, when I get nervous, or I tend to speed up in my speech when I get really anxious about something. And even, like when I'm in the broadcast booth, I've noticed this within myself that, hell, I even get nervous trying to go through the opening. I mean, listen, at least I can laugh at myself in that regard. But it's all good. So, with all of those things being said, I figured that now would be a good time to really get into what I want to get into. And that is, how am I? Like, how am I feeling? And I'm not just talking only in terms of the world of sports. I'm talking, how am I feeling as a person? Where's my mind at right now? Like, as I travel through a very interesting period in time in life, where I, for one, I am almost about 3 months removed from a lengthy relationship. And earlier this month, I made the discovery that I really needed to take the time to give myself the opportunity to heal. I never talk about my personal life on social media, with the exception of, when I was dealing with anxiety for the first time in June of 2020, when I lost my beloved Uncle Reese last year, which, I'm still grieving, still very much so. I still have my days, and as well as, other smaller things here and there, but I never shared like the intimate details as to, hey, what's going on? Like, so this time in which that a lot of you who follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, y'all see that I'm in the media, broadcasting business and industry, grinding, making moves, making things happen and whatnot. But what a lot of you don't see and a lot of you don't know is that almost 3 months removed from a year plus relationship with someone, it could be challenging at times. And when I say challenging, and I mean challenging, whereas you still think about the person. If you're going to be completely transparent with yourself, you still think about the person here and there. You still, have memories that'll come up here and there. But during that stretch, whether depending on like how things ended and whatnot, you are going through a variety of different emotions, whether it be positive, negative, neutral, and whatnot. And you're learning how to deal with those things. Because let's be honest, we as individuals and human beings, especially in today's era, have a very difficult time being honest with that within ourselves. We just do. And you don't give time for yourself to process those emotions, to heal, especially when things end the way that it abruptly ended. I was the one who ended that relationship, and I'm not going to like get too crazy in depth, at least not at this moment in time. But what I will share with you is this. I will say that when I broke off things in July, it was towards the end of July, it was almost 3 months ago now. One of the things that I said at the time to my now ex, I said to her that I was entering a very different and new chapter in my life. And I saw it back then, back in July, and I was right. I have since entered a very new, blessed, and a new chapter in my life. And the thing that I said was, are you willing to grow with me as part of this new chapter or not? And the answer from her basically was, and she answered it with a question, was, what do you mean by growth? And I'm not here to talk negatively about the individual. I'm not. I'm truly not. I have no reason to. There's no point in me talking negative about someone who's no longer in my life. What good or what positive comes from that? Zero. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So she answered it with, what is your definition of growth? And I told her exactly what I thought. And long story short, when it was clear that she was not transparent with me in terms of what she really wanted or believed in terms of marriage, because I mentioned that marriage is my end goal, or should I say the beginning of the ultimate goal of the relationship. That was when I decided to walk away, when she didn't want that, because that was not verbalized at all at any given point in the relationship. So I was hurt. I was angry. I was pretty pissed off. I was pissed off for a while, where I remember throughout the rest of the summer that just passed, I was, in terms of my emotions, I was just not in a good place. Like, if I was feeling hurt, I was feeling angry, I was pissed off, I was bitter. And it takes a lot to even admit that. I was just bitter as hell. And I needed to take the time to, sort through those emotions and figure out what is it that I'm going to do during this phase of my life where being single again, 3 months after the breakup, what is it do I need? What is it that I want for myself? And fellas and ladies included, if you're going through a post breakup phase whereas you're actively trying to heal, you're actively trying to better yourself as an individual post relationship, I salute you, because there are a lot of people that are out there that are, looking to just jump into another relationship after the fact, and you're not given the opportunity to heal and to work on yourself. I don't know how people do it, but it's toxic as hell. So kudos to you. But as for me personally, what I realized right before my birthday, which was just 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks into being 31 years old, I realized, one night I was having a conversation with my childhood friend, Q. We've known each other since we were kids. I'm talking about like when we were maybe 6, 7 years old. Like, we were kids. We grew up like next to each other. Like, he's practically family. And he knows this. And him and I have talked about this. And him and I had a conversation. And I remember coming to this realization that I'm not okay. I wasn't okay. And I said that not because I have feelings for my ex. I was saying that because I realized that I'm walking around angry. I'm walking around really hurt or hurting. And I needed to take time away from dating altogether and just focus on myself. So when I say that you have to take time to work on yourself, it is so important. It's so important because a lot of people out here walking around lost, and it's fucking scary. And I try not to curse on a podcast, but I'm just going to be authentic and just say, screw it. But a lot of people out here walking around lost, especially when you go through heartbreak or disappointment and things of that nature, and it does nobody any good. It just doesn't. So what I had to decide for myself was, what am I going to do to begin the process of, one, finding myself again in terms of remembering what makes Shukri Shukri, and what is it that I really want out of life for myself. It could be career. I know exactly what I want. Relationship. What do I want? But the biggest question of all as a man is, what type of man do I want to be? Not worried about what other people are going to say or think on social media. That I could give two rat's asses about that. But in real life, what kind of life do I want to lead for myself? What kind of person do I want to be internally that I can exude and give to the world? Those are real questions that I ask myself on a daily basis. And it's something that I think that it is so important, in which that we have to, and I mean, we have to take time for ourselves to really figure out exactly who and what we are when we're not surrounded by anybody else. Because a lot of people can't handle the idea of being by themselves. And I think that's bad. And I think it's really very problematic. And the reason why I feel this way is because now a lot of people don't really know like my story. So here is a portion of something very important yet significant that I now look back on and I say, without question, if I didn't go through those things, I'm not where I am right now. And I really wholeheartedly believe it. So I'm going to share this with you. So many of you know that I'm from New York, New York. Born and raised. Born and raised New Yorker. Went to college in New York City. Went to school in New York, except the 3.5 years that I went to high school in New Jersey. But still, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, all part of the tri-state region and so forth. But what a lot of people don't know, what I'm about to share with you now, is this. From 2009, more specifically from September 2009 to May of 2015, when I was blessed to walk at graduation from Long Island University, family, friends being there, such a special day and occasion. What a lot of people don't know is that I spent a lot of time alone. I mean seriously. So I want to share with you like tidbits of exactly what I'm talking about. Now, when you're 18, let's say 18 through 23, that was basically my college years. When you're 18 to 23 years old, you are obsessed with, having a social life. You're obsessed with, like trying to hang with friends or trying to, have friends like that you can hang out with, which is important, which is great. Yeah, I really do think so. But I didn't always have that. And I'm serious. Like, I would say roughly 30 to 35% of my time during my college years, I spent hanging out with other people. Those people who know they know who they are. Whether if it was, my group of Muslim friends I hung out with during my second half of my college years between 2013 to 15 or up until the time that I left New York, or from 2009 to 2012, there was here and there I'd hang out with certain people, but like more on like an individual base. But I didn't really have that group of friends that I hung out with in New York. But I did have a very special group of friends that I did hang out with every time I would go back home to New Jersey. Every other weekend, or sometimes every 3-4 weeks, I go back to Lawrence and hang out with with that very special group of friends, and John Morawski, Nathan Harris, and I would also hang out, guys like Matt Bussell, Devin Harusco. Shout out to those guys, and like we'll hang out here and there, But the point is, I spent 65% of my time by myself. So one would wonder, like, what did my Friday night, Saturday night look like? And even sometimes Sunday night. But you get the point. It looked like me basically spending time alone. That's exactly what it looked like. I spent that time alone, not really having anybody to hang out with. I would call certain people and say, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, oh, let's hang out. Oh, no, I can't. I'm busy tonight. Or, oh, I can't. Like, whatever excuse that was presented, it was like, all right, bet. After a certain time, I said, you know what? If people are not willing to make time to hang out with me, fine. Okay. I will make the time to learn how to be comfortable by myself. So what did I do? Well, some people would ask, like, you're in New York City. You're 18 to 23 years old. So what did you do? Did you go out clubbing? Like, no, I was not a person that went out clubbing. I was a person that I would go to these specific spots. And I'm about to put anybody who's listening or watching this podcast on game. If you just move to NYC or the New York metropolitan area, I'm about to put you on game now. There will be specific spots that I would go or certain activities that I would partake and I would just do. It has made me happy. Number one, I would take the PATH train from 33rd Street, Midtown, that's by Herald Square, across the Hudson to Hoboken. Or that would be like a Friday night. I would sometimes take the Hoboken to World Trade Center train over to Hoboken. But either way, I found my way to Hoboken, and I would just sit there. I would sit at the Hoboken terminal and just look at the view of the New York skyline. Those of you that know and that are from NYC or from that region, you know exactly what I'm talking about on just how beautiful that view is. That's what I would do. So in 2009, I used to go up to West New York. Shout out to the West New York people who I used to hang out with. Cool. And we would meet. It happened twice in the fall of 2009. And I would go up to Port Imperial. That's another spot. That's spot number 2, by the way. The first spot I mentioned was Hoboken Terminal. Spot number 2, Port Imperial. I promise you, you take the light rail from, let's say you're coming from Jersey City or Hoboken, take it up to Port Imperial. That's like the third to last stop. That's like the third to last stop on a train if you're heading towards, I believe, Burger Line Avenue. So I would go there and I would just sit at the bench. It didn't matter how warm or how cold it was. I just sit there. I just sit there, maybe listen to music, just be in my own thoughts and just relax. Or between 2009 and 2012, I would say till around January, February 2012, around that time. Friday nights, I would take the train over to Hoboken and then hop on a light rail, go to what is called Newport Mall. Those of you that know. I would go there, maybe watch a movie or two, enjoy some pretzel bites and nacho cheese. That would be my Friday night or Saturday night, again, by myself. During that time, I needed to learn how to be comfortable by myself. And it's amazing how life works, because you would think that being that young, between the ages of 18 to 23, you're preoccupied hanging out with people. And it's like, no, most people just either didn't want to hang out with me, or they just flat out just didn't have time or didn't make the time. So I was like, all right, cool. This is the hand I'm dealt. I'm going to make the best of it. Watch. And I did. So it's amazing how life works, because I didn't know it at the time. And let's just rewind the clock back to the era between 2010 to 2014. Let's say that 4-year window between 2010 and 2014. I didn't know it at the time, but that ability absolutely changed me. It changed me to the point where I was just so comfortable in hanging out by myself that I wasn't afraid to travel on my own. And the first test for me came in May of 2014 when I traveled up to Boston by myself under the probably the worst of circumstances. And I'm not going to get into that particular story, because that is a story that I've told many times on different platforms and other podcasts where I've been interviewed. But that's a story for another day. So those 4 years in which that I was basically, forced to spend time by myself, I can remember vividly Saturday afternoon, Saturday nights, being alone, just chilling, And a lot of times I spent a lot of those days, being in my own head. It wasn't easy. It wasn't, but it hardened me, not in a way where it made me bitter, no, but it made me comfortable. Like, yo, all right, it is what it is. I'm just gonna do me and do what I gotta do to make me happy. So that's exactly what it was. So without those years, I really wholeheartedly believe if I didn't learn how to be by myself during that era between the fall of '09 to 2014, I don't make the move to Boston in 2017. I wholeheartedly believe it. And even now living in Boston 5.5 years, going on 6 years come this February, I really believe that the days and the times I spend by myself, and it's a lot of those days and a lot of those times, I don't think I'd be able to make it if it wasn't for those 4 years, in between 2009 and going into like the summer of 2014, where I spent a lot of time by myself. But what about 2014-15? Well, I spent time by myself, but I also by that point, had a group of friends where we would link up, hang out and whatnot. So it was the beginning of like the start of a transition period there, where I, begun to like really appreciate the people who I was able to hang out with in New York during that time towards the end of my college years in NYC. So now back to what I was talking about earlier during this segment in terms of relationships and so forth. So I'm making my way back here tonight, back to my apartment, my studio apartment. And all I can think of is, man, what am I going to do? Like I said, I want to record a podcast. I got to get comfortable, get more and more perfect behind the mic. Because I'm not a finished product. I just have gotten this hunger where I feel like I have to fucking make it. I have to make it huge. And I'm not just talking just based on where I am now, because I haven't even begun to touch the ceiling yet of what I know I can ultimately become and what I will ultimately become. But it takes times like this on a Thursday night. I got the TV in front of me on mute, not really paying too much attention to it, just focusing on how I can get better as a radio host and as well as a personality, a media personality, and just grow. Continue to grow. And let me tell you something. It is absolutely imperative that we take the time in which that when you have that period where you're single, you have to put in the work in terms of, depending on how old you are, you have to really make important decisions as to who you're going to be, what you're going to be, who are you going to become, what you are going to allow and disallow in your life. It is so important, which is why I think for the first time in my life, I've really grown extremely comfortable with the very thought and notion and the idea that I am going to become this savage. And this savage in terms of what I need to do in order to become who I want to become. More on that in just a little bit. Welcome back to the Strictly Rights podcast with your host, Strictly Rights, solo episode. I spent basically almost a full hour talking about, like what's going on with me, like something that I'm now entering upon, like this chapter in my life where everything that I do is geared towards a certain goal, a certain direction that I want to go in my life. And that's where I'm at now. Whereas I think it's so important that you really push yourself beyond the box, beyond the box that you currently see yourself in. You know, I had a really important conversation with someone in the Boston sports media landscape, and I'm not going to give away who that person's name is, but it was very recently, and it's a question that I really have taken to heart, and I really want to credit that person. He knows who he is, and I want to say thank you, because that question that was asked changed everything. And that question was, who is Shukri Wrights? Who is Shukri? What makes Shukri Shukri? Not the Bruins passionate videos and content I post on Twitter or TikTok. Not the guy who has the radio show or does broadcasts on ESPN Plus or on the ESPN app no, none of that. No. Who is Shukri Wrights? And I had to stop to think to myself, wow. Not that I didn't know who I was before, but part of being a radio personality, part of being a podcast host is discovering your inner voice, discovering who and what you are. You know, it's not always about hardcore sports talk. Oh, let's talk about the Patriots. I think Bailey Zappi should 100% be the starting quarterback moving forward. No, it's not about that. That's part of it. I would say maybe 45% of it. But what makes Shukri tick? What makes Shukri happy? What makes Shukri sad? What made Shukri have a great day today? What made Shukri really freaking pissed? What makes him tick? I said that already, but you get my point. My point is, I have to know that and learn that about myself, whether if it's on air, but especially, obviously, off the air, I know who and what I am. But it's now about bringing it to the forefront as a personality and as a host, and letting people who enjoy what I do get a glimpse as to, oh, this is the Shukri we've never seen before. Oh wow, I never knew this, because social media is only a very small, tiny window into our individual lives, especially mine's. I don't post my life on Twitter or Instagram, on Facebook. I'll post like career moves and announcements and so forth. But I've had to grow past the point of sharing my entire life, not in a literal sense, but you get what I mean. But go from being a person that shared too much to now sharing certain aspects. If you really want to get to know me, you're going to have to really get to know me in person, off of all of this, off the social media stuff. That was that. But what I've discovered, and I'm discovering now, and I'm growing as I move through this phase, is that I am figuring out exactly those other little details about me that I didn't know before. And it's interesting that at age 31, you're still getting to learn about yourself. You see, and I'm glad that I just hit on that, because I think people need to hear this. You have to get to know yourself outside of social media. Social media is not life. I'm going to say it again. I am going to say this again. That is, social media is not life. Get to know yourself. Self awareness is beautiful, it's sexy, and damn, it'll make you even more valuable because you know who and what you are outside of what you do as a professional or for a line of work. That's what I'm saying. So, with all of those things being said, this period of life right now is a time for me in which that I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about what makes Shukri the person that I am. And the people who have actually gotten to know me and still, or getting to know me, like outside of social media, like I just feel like there's a level of growth that's involved, and it's not just solely on radio. It's not just solely on podcasts and whatnot. I think for me, the biggest area that I'm working on myself right now as I continue to heal from this relationship that I just gotten out of like three months ago is understanding who and what I am as a man. Understanding that there are areas that I need to work on for me, no one else. No one else. I have to get better as not just as a person. I have to work on me and make that conscientious decision to work on myself every single day because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And the moment that we begin to acknowledge that as people and as human beings, the better off we will be. So a lot of you know that I've started a new podcast called Believe in Boston Betting Podcast with Believe Network. You can hear it on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. I mean, and it's a tremendous gig, tremendous. And I would also even say that I am very blessed to even have that. But what I also realize is that what also challenges me is going to help me grow. I'm new to sports betting. Sports betting has taken on a larger role and importance in sports media, and it's not going anywhere. What you see now out there in terms of the sports betting shows, the content that's basically surrounded by sports betting and gambling, that's not going anywhere. And for me to step my toes into that arena, I think it's huge. It's going to be huge. And I think that, there's a part of me that does feel a little nervous because it's new. I mean, not hosting a podcast, no, but doing a sports betting podcast, covering Boston sports. Boston sports is something that I'm very deeply well versed in. I can talk Bruins, I can talk Celtics, I can talk Patriots, I can talk Red Sox. But the Red Sox, they're in the off season right now. So the Red Sox are not even going to be on the forefront of discussion for me until the hot stove season begins after the conclusion of the World Series. But the point is, this is something that I enjoy doing. And part of it is understanding that it's okay for things that you're new at to scare you. That's how you're making moves in the right direction. It should scare you. If it doesn't scare you, maybe you're a little too comfortable. That's what it's all about. I'm going to wrap up this podcast by saying the following. if it doesn't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough. And that is something that a lot of people need to learn and work on and understand. That is going to wrap it up for this edition of the Sugar Race Podcast. It's been a blast doing this episode here with you and talking to you, the audience, the viewer, or the listener. I appreciate you. I will talk to you again next week. Have a great weekend. We're getting closer to Halloween, and I can't believe that November is literally right around the corner. And before you know it, Thanksgiving is going to be here. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Later.